Hi everyone, it's Kim from the Shamrock Quilt Studio, and today we're working on our AZURE project again, and I've got a nifty one for us today, and the block is number 70 Palm, and this is a very, I think, unique block. The first half I have already completed, and it is right here. It's just two colors, and I picked the darkest color, and then I picked one of the medium blues that almost comes out as a solid. So they're both pretty much a solid, especially from a distance, but up close you can see a little pattern. So we're going to get started with this block right after this. Well, we're back and we're ready to get started with our number 70 Palm block. Now this particular block, you can see here from this little sketch of the finished block, this block only has two sections. It has a right section and a left section, and one of those is already complete. Just to speed this along, they're exactly the same. They just kind of mirror images of each other. And we're going to be working on the B half of this. And like I said, I've chosen to do this in two colors. The darkest kind of mottled fabric and also a medium blue in almost what I want to refer to as a wood grain almost. It's almost like it's crinkledy in the pattern that's there on the fabric. So we're going to use that. Now, let me tell you a little bit about doing the first half and the things that I learned. I tried to cut the actual shapes that we see in this block, the triangles, and every time I did that, I got it wrong. The dimensions were off, the angles were off, I had the fabric backwards, every way it was wrong. And I did not really find any success in this until I just got a big hunk of fabric and started sewing it on. And that seemed to work much better because I could kind of position it on that one line where we're sewing and then fold it back and then trim it. It worked much better. I had actually less waste doing it that way, and that was the whole purpose in trying to pre-cut them, was to use as small a piece of fabric as possible. Sometimes that is not working the way you think it should. So let's get started on this B section of this block. And as we do with all of our blocks, we sew the fabrics right side up on the reverse of the template. So here I've got our first piece on the very bottom, and I started with the largest one first. I think for this particular design you could start on either side. You could probably even start in the middle and work your way out. But I'm choosing to do the biggest piece first and then work down to the smallest. So I have that block here, and I have folded it back, and I've got the 1/4 inch sewn on. And then not sewn on, but trimmed. And now I'm going to take this piece of fabric and put it right sides together. And I'm going to place those raw edges up so they're equal. And then we're going to sew on this side on the seam line. Now, it seems like we've talked about this a lot, but we're going to cover it one more time. When the seam line goes all the way to the edge of the printed template, you can sew off. If the seam line is butting up like a dead-end row does, you don't want to sew beyond that. Okay, so we're right at the point where the line starts, and I'm going to put my needle down, and I'm going to reduce the size of my stitches to a 1.8, and that's going to make a really small stitch. It's going to make it easier to pull the paper off when we're done, and it's going to hold it really securely together. there's one piece on. Okay, there we are. We've got that second piece of fabric on now. And just making sure we are over the seam lines. And that's the really important thing, because if we don't come far enough to make it over the seam lines, we have to take it out and start over. Okay, we folded that down. We're not quite on the line. Okay, there we go. Make sure that's pulled out. And this piece of fabric we started with, we should be able to use it again. We'll see how our sizes match up. I find there's a lot of little scrap pieces of fabric in this process. Okay, so we're here. Now we're just alternating these colors back and forth, like you can see here. So the next one is going to be the little wood grain. And we should be able to put that right here. Now I'm just looking at whether there might be a better option, and I think what I'm going to do is trim this in a straight line. And then I'm going to come here and put it lined up with the raw edge of the fabric. And I'm actually going to come this way with it, so that when I kind of test it out, we're over where we need to be. Pin there to hold it. Okay, we're going to try it right there. Okay, let's see if we got that lined up right. We did. We're looking good. I love it when it's like that and it's coming out well. Okay, so we've got that. And now we're going to do our little fold thing again. I'm trimming now. And as you recall, we do a 1/4 inch seam allowance for our fabric. We've got a pin sticking through there. Okay. All right, so now we have 3 strips of fabric, and we are ready for our next one, which is going to be a dark piece. And I'm going to trim this one up for a straight line again. Squeaky chair. And we should be able to put that just like that and get another good seam. And flip it over to do the sewing. Now, where these seams come together on the outside, we can sew beyond the seams. But when those two seams come together and we fold that back to be able to trim the fabric up, the seams as they cross are going to go in opposite directions. So you're almost better off to stop that when it comes to the point that it intersects. And then you won't have any confusion as to where that should be trimmed, and you won't have the two fabrics competing with each other. Okay, so we'll fold that back and we're going to trim again. Okay. All right, so now we have 4 pieces of fabric there. And we're going to just continue this process. Sometimes these pins get bent and they're a little harder to handle that way. So now we need another light fabric, and this is the piece we're trying to fill in. So if I'm looking here at what I have in scraps for that, I don't think I have anything, but I am going to trim this off. That's not big enough for that, but it might be big enough for the one up top. So we'll just put that to the side. This is a dark one. And we're going to need another piece of fabric. Now, most of these lines have been running this way, so when we cut fabric, we want to cut in that same direction. And how much you cut is really going to be up to you, because this particular block is not going to use that much more fabric. In fact, we've got 2 more pieces of this color and then we move on. But you know what other blocks you have, so you need to keep that in mind, whether you just want to cut a smaller square out, whether you want to cut a bigger piece like this, or if you have scraps that you want to use. And this one I want to kind of keep the fabric at least appearing to all go in the same direction. Okay, so we're going to line this one up here. And the bulk of it's going to be here. So that should do it. And let's sew that. My foot pedal is stuck and it won't go beyond just a creep. Okay, that's sewed nicely, and we'll flip it over. Let's take that pin out, and then we'll flip it this way, and we're going to fold that next one. I have a hard time folding it in the other direction. Okay, so there's our fold, and then we can trim. And we can trim this new piece and the piece below it. Be that one. All right, that looks great. Now we need another dark piece. And what is the shape that we're working here? We just have kind of a small area. And I think that one will do for that. Pretty sure it will. We'll put that up here. That should work well. All right, let's sew. And I know we've covered a lot of this over and over again, but you do want to sew right down the middle of that line. Sometimes you can get off a bit and it won't make a big difference, but other times it really will. Okay, that looks a little short there, but it looks like it's going to be okay. And then on this piece, we've got just a little seam. We need to go this way. So we'll fold that and trim. And then we need a light color block. And I think we'll be best to go with this block. That'll kind of keep our directional fabric going all in the same direction. The other one would fit, but it would have a different motion. It would be less appealing. Okay, so then there's our final piece. And what we're going to do now is we're going to, I think before we trim any, what we're going to do is we're going to run our little basting stitch around the outside. And I'm going to scoot my chair over. I think ergonomically, when I try to reach way over to my sewing machine, that's when I have the worst problems with my back being sore, either that evening or the next day, because I'm doing something that I'm kind of in an unnatural position, and this is a little more straight onto the machine. Now this basting is really easy because it's just 3 straight lines. And the basting along the edges is really great for a project like we're working on, that we're making these pieces and they're sitting for a while, because it'll keep it nice and neat for as long as we need it to. Okay, now we'll trim, and we're trimming right on the outside of that dotted line. And you can do that either with the ruler or you can do it with the scissors. Okay, and there's our other half of this. Now, the nice thing about this particular block is, even though we've had to deal with those angles on one side, all we have to do to put this together, if I can get all my pins to cooperate, is sew the 2 halves together. And there's the drawing again. And you can see that we're taking 1 half and the other half, and we're just going to stitch it right down this way. Really super simple, given some of the blocks that we've done recently that have really been complicated as far as putting the pieces together. And we're going to use our trick here of lining up the corners. The point on one side to the point on the other side. Oh, perfect. And let's get this one on the other end. Oh, nice. And I'm going to grab a couple of clips. Oops, I'm getting every kind but the one I want. I'm really looking for these plastic clips. Okay, so we've got that lined up, and we're just going to clip 2 or 3 of these down the way. And then we'll put a couple of these on the outside just to hold it together. All right, and we just sew it. And we want to make sure that we go back to that shorter stitch. And again, I'm using the 1.8 or 2 for the actual seams, and then I'm using a 5 for the basting. So we can take that out. I'm going to add one more here. Needle down in the point or slightly beyond it, since this is 2 pieces that are going together and nothing's going on top of it. And I'm removing those clips as we go. Now I'm going to take a peek, if I can. They look like they're lined up. It gets very thick in the places where all those seams are coming together, because we've got a lot of fabric there. And I did give it a little, like, 1 stitch back stitch on the very top and the bottom in the seam allowance. So now when we open this up, let me flatten this just a little bit because it'll make it look so much better. And there it is. Now this is what I love about foundation paper piecing. Look at the accuracy in how these all come together. They are super skinny, narrow pieces of paper with points at the end, and all of the seams just come together beautifully. When we take the paper out of most of the bottom of this, it's going to lay flat and be really, really nice. Look at that. So, so pretty. What a lovely block to build your confidence and show you that even when things look very difficult from the picture, how they can come together so nicely. And you saw half of the sewing for this. The other one was exactly the same. As long as you are careful about where you put the placement of those fabrics, it really does a great job. So that's it for this block. Again, this is number 70, the palm, and we will be featuring this in our AZURE project. I hope you had a good time today and you learned something maybe in foundation paper piecing if it's new to you. If there's something that you know about foundation paper piecing that would have made this even easier, leave a comment and share that with us. We would all love to know that. Thanks for joining me today. If you liked this video, give us a thumbs up. Be sure to subscribe to the channel. And we'll see you next week. We're going to do another block for our AZURE project here at the Shamrock Quilt Studio. Bye.